Issue 193. Sonic is sent to anti-mobius with Amy since Sally thinks he'll need backup there when he went there alone once and was fine, and Sonic calls her cruel as a result. Rotor warns them that they don't know where on anti-mobius the portal will drop them, and then they promptly drop them into the ocean and they drowned after going, nah, just kidding. Instead, they show up in a building with a Chow picture proving cute and friendly Chow do exist on that planet, instead of the Chow being morality switched too. With Amy saying to add depth to the place that for a supposedly evil dimension, it's pretty nice looking. Then, despite the fact that the blue Omega robot attacking them clearly has a Texas accent, it would probably have a certain familiar voice too, Amy and Sonic don't catch on to who this person is, and just assume it's a regular robot as Sonic spin dashes into it. Amy gets trapped in place by the bodyguard, with Sonic being made to sit there dizzy, as I wonder why the hell she's just paranoidly assuming what's clearly not the evil Amy and Sonic are going to hurt her boss. I mean, she had to know that Scourge looks different now, and Sonic's good, right? How cynical is she that she assumes every Amy and Sonic is out to kill her boss? Then Counterpart rushes in, saying they're not enemies, recognizing Sonic and helping him up. Surprisingly, Buns apologizes, saying she has no color vision in her mech suit for some reason, and breaks the riot foam that had solidified around Amy, as I wonder why Amy didn't just do it herself with her hammer. Counterpart says that they should continue this conversation outside because it's such a lovely day. Being a good contrast to Robotnik, making me really wish he could have been more of a regular character. Just like with the other evil twins, you'd think the evil versions of the main characters would appear way more often than, say, Kodos and Ixis, who are way more bland. Rotor says that because the star posts are only meant for going to the special zone, they're lucky the portal stayed open for long enough. And Nicole asks in concern if Sonic and Amy have already left. Nicole says that Miles is outside the city, and Sally and Tails immediately get apprehensive, running out with Sally saying to tell Antoine and Bunny to meet them there. Why are they taking him so seriously as a threat? I mean, he's just the evil Tails. Rotor then reassures Nicole that he's okay with not going because he's not part of the field team anymore, and Sonic and Amy are going to need a way home. The heroes immediately run off to Miles all angrily, with Antoine holding his sword up to bluff him. So Miles is sarcastic with them, probably to instinctively hide his stress and fear and frustration at them for treating him like an enemy and threatening him like that. But considering he's here to negotiate with them, the fact that he acted like such a punchable jerk right away just proves he's not the manipulating type. If he was, he would have been polite, like a smart person. Miles says, showing them a bag with bombs, that he's here under the false pretense of bombing their city, but since he made no effort to hide, and he's explaining himself slowly, he's obviously not intending to complete that mission. He explains that the Suppression Squad is less fond of Scourge than the heroes are, so he came to propose an alliance. Meanwhile, we see that the Great Force in anti-mobius has been renamed the Grand Force when it was clearly not called that in Sonic Super Special Issue 10, and it's not commented on either. Counterpart makes pleasant small talk, pointing out that Amy's never been here before, calling her Miss Rose. He explains that he runs the hospital tower they just came from. I hope it's not the only one out there, or even in the city, or else what would the Suppression Squad do if one of them got really injured or sick? Would he get them taken care of too? Counterpart explains that his tower houses the force field generator he uses to protect the Force and all the people who are hiding from Scourge's tyranny. It's then explained that the force field is invisible, explaining why the evil twins just ran up to it last time because they couldn't see it until it was too late. And I'm assuming the force field is also powerful enough to stay there for literally all time so that the gang can't sneak into a city in the middle of the night. Counterpart says it's all his fault because the evil twins stormed his tower, stealing his experimental glow posts. First of all, how? Did they use Scourge's warp ring to get past the force field? And if they did, why didn't they do that more often? And why didn't Scourge just use that warp ring to go back to Fiona when he was briefly sent back home, instead of making such a big deal about it? And third, most importantly, why was he making glow posts in the first place? Especially glaring since the glow posts were totally unnecessary. The evil twins could just warp there with Scourge's warp ring. Think Counterpart, to my surprise, actually explains why he made the glow posts. He had hoped to search other zones for new medical techniques because he needs something to heal Buns. I'm glad they explained this instead of just having his glow post exist as a plot device for the villains to steal. Then Sonic and Amy look stupid as they still haven't realized until Buns pointed out that she's in the mech, even though they should recognize Bunny's voice, or at least her accent. Why would the mech give her a different voice? Then she explains that she developed Maria's disease, and Scourge kicked her out of the gang, leaving her for dead, which would make sense since she wouldn't be useful to the gang, and she doesn't like Scourge. And even if he felt sorry for her, she would just be making him really uncomfortable from pity, having a person with a terminal illness sitting around all the time. I'd like to point out that she's explaining her lack of immune system while her head is sticking out of the mech, protecting her from getting sick, and she's breathing in stuff. How is she not immediately getting sick from this? Well, Counterpart explains that his Omega Care Unit creates a stasis field that prevents her condition from progressing from her base of her spine and supports her immune system. So I guess that explains it? And then he shows himself to be the opposite of Eggman once again by saying he won't rest until she's free of her robot body. I mean, it does make sense, I guess, that he's got absolutely nothing in common with the person he's supposed to be a counterpart of, because Eggman is completely 100% defined by evil, negative traits, whereas Sonic is a lot more similar to Scourge, and Scourge has done heroic things like rescuing the Destructics from the life-draining egg grapes. But it's just kind of weird that Robotnik's non-evil twin is pretty much absolutely nothing like him, to the point where he might as well not be his counterpart at all, while Scourge is just Sonic, but a bit more of an asshole. I mean, it's not really consistent. Like, are the evil twins, are the counterparts people supposed to have the exact same personalities all the time, or be complete opposites? It's one or the other. And Buns calls her old friends backstabbers, even though she just said it was Scourge who kicked her out, not all of her friends at once. So again, she's overly paranoid and cynical since she just assumes this and turns on all of them. Quite a contrast from when she was such good friends with Alicia that she said she could understand Scourge cheating on her with her. Is the reason Buns is evil because she's extremely cynical and paranoid from, I don't know, her parents abusing her in some way? I guess we'll never know. Counterpart says with his arms across the contrast himself again that he's still not pleased with arming Omega, talking as if Omega is a robot, not a mech suit. So that was kind of a game reference that kind of got lost in translation. But at least she only wields non-lethal weapons. It's so ironic seeing that Counterpart is literally the exact opposite of Eggman, with nothing in common with him whatsoever in personality, while Scourge is so close to Sonic, and the same can be said for the other evil twins. And nobody really comments on this either, it's not very self-aware. Amy expressed disgust at the riot foam, and Sonic says he was attacked by dizzy-making sound waves. And Counterpart explains that he named Buns' mech Omega because it was a last resort, and he refuses to build an army of robots like Eggman. Except Omega isn't the last letter in the Greek alphabet. Zeta is. You'd think he would be knowledgeable enough to know that. Unless the Greek alphabet is a teeny bit different on Mobius. Buns jokes that they could try to recruit someone that Counterpart says is way too dangerous, and Counterpart says that Rosie the Rascal hates Scourge. Then Miles explains that him and his friends hate Scourge. He explains that the leadership of the anti-freedom fighters has always been in flux, but he came back and ruined everything. Way to contradict yourself there. First he says the leadership's never been consistent, and therefore he should be used to it changing. And now he talks as if Scourge changing the leadership and becoming the new leader is such a big deal based on that alone. He says about Scourge that he beat the evil twins into submission, as the comic refuses to show us a single panel of him doing so. So much for a villain moment. And Miles says that Scourge was bent on making them more than their evil twins. He's putting more in evil twins in sarcastic quotation marks, even though we should know it's true, right? Miles says that he and his friends had to take on new names and appearances, and then says as if he's complaining that some of them took that to the extreme, showing Patch and Boomer who's about to happily put on a cybernetic helmet. If he can just put it on over his head, he's not a cyborg. Unless he screwed it to his scalp so it can't be removed. But yeah, Miles is talking like he's unhappy that his friends made themselves look so different, being attached to the way Boomer and the others used to look. Then we see Scourge with fire in front of him and an enraged Anti-Knuckles in front of him, with the art in black and white because the artist rushed the issue out. And Miles explains while holding his chest for some reason, looking like he's hiding fear with a frown, that after Scourge made himself king, he got bored. Naturally, since conquering a world is one thing, actually running it is another. I doubt he and Fiona would be interested in the administrative duties and paperwork of managing a global economy. He just wants something exciting to do and something big to accomplish. And it's obvious that taking over planets isn't cutting it for him, since he gets so bored once he accomplishes what he thinks he wants to do, but instead of taking the hint that it's not for him, he went to Mobius to do the exact same thing again. That's like saying, I hate broccoli, so I'm gonna dedicate my entire life to eating as much broccoli as possible, until finally I'll be happy and satisfied. With the freedom fighter still looking resentful of him, Tails asks with his arms crossed if he wants the heroes to help overwhelm Scourge. And Miles says to him looking resentful that they're trying to have an intelligent conversation and doesn't want him to talk, calling him a little boy, since he said earlier he associates being best friends with Sonic with being younger like he used to be. He hates himself from another universe so much that he wanted him not to talk because it just stressed him out. But the sheer fact that he has this unlikable moment and enraged Tails in a delicate situation like this is proof that Miles is not the manipulating chess master god that fans think he is. If he was like a version of Tails who would put all of his genius into being a manipulating social skills whiz, he would have acted nice, being like a world-class Oscar-winning actor or something, instead of acting like he was expected to because he was expected to act that way. He wouldn't have had the rock stupid idea to keep lashing out from stress at the people he was trying to turn to for help. For all he knew, enraging Tails like that could have gotten the heroes to refuse to help him out of spite. For all he knows, being sarcastic with the heroes the minute they showed up would have just gotten them to immediately beat him up before he could even say anything. And he doesn't even seem to realize the risk that he took. Or at least we assume not, because we don't get to see his reaction to Tails being angry, or at all seeing him reflect on how he acted here. And instead in the same panel where he's angry, Miles is reacting to Sally being interested in his plan. If Miles is supposed to be a coward, according to some fans, why isn't he even so much as jumping startled at Tails getting angry with him? That's another thing. Why isn't he like all the other evil twins, being too terrified to try to turn on Scourge? Did Scourge and him have such a close friendship earlier on that he instinctively isn't as intimidated by him as everyone else is? Why was it Miles of all people who was brave enough to fearlessly do this against them, while the other evil twins were warning him about it? It has to be for a reason. And I guess the only reason Tails' friends don't stick up for him is because Miles is busy negotiating an alliance and they don't want to change the subject in an important situation, but you'd think at least one of them would say something like, be nice. He says while Sally glares at him suspiciously with their arms crossed, I'd be pretty scared if I was him, that he and his friends have already rigged the star post to send Scourge back home. Nicole then appears looking like a floating head with purple light below her, which you'd think would startle him to no end, seeing a decapitated head floating in front of him with him not knowing who it belongs to, or what is going on. But sadly, we don't actually get to see his reaction to this. Instead, Sally says that Nicole still has access to the lab in Freedom HQ, and is asked to confirm their story. Wait, they're just outside the city. They're not in the city. How can Nicole send her body here? And then Nicole then says just a moment, and then confirms he's telling the truth. When I first read this issue, I hadn't read the previous ones, aside from the evil twin related ones, of course. So I thought she was just being a living lie detector out of nowhere, and that's how she knew Miles wasn't lying. I'm sure she could have been made to be that way with the Super Emeralds or something, making sure that you don't really need Dulcie around to tell that someone's lying anymore. But instead, it turns out I was somehow expected to know from just one panel that she teleported to the lab and back, even though it wasn't actually in the nanite city she has control over, and then teleported back confirming Miles really did set the star post up. This would have been represented much better over the span of two panels, one where she warps away and the other where she comes back, but instead we just have her looking like a creepy floating head. And Miles doesn't even question this. Even though he doesn't have an anti-Nicole back home, you'd think he would be reacting to this. You'd think he would want to know who she is. I guess he's just as focused on the tense negotiation as Sally is. So that's two separate times in this whole negotiation where there should have been two panels and not one. The first time where Tails was acting angry and we should have seen Miles' reaction to that, but we didn't because it was just one panel. With that, Sally shakes his hand, still looking suspicious, and lets him make the plan. Counterpart says at his tower that Rosie might be at the Castle Acorn because she stalks Scourge relentlessly, and they don't have a high-tech security system made by Boomer to keep Rosie out of the castle by this point for some weird reason. He then shows a lot of worry and concern about Buns like a coddling parent, And Buns says with a smirk that she'll keep the do-gooders safe, proving that she's still evil. She's just working with Counterpart to spite her friends because she's actually grateful that he saved her life. So we have an evil twin with some actual depths. Counterpart shows some more concern about how Sonic's gonna get home, and Sonic acts impatient with how he's nagging him, asking if he can go now. Sonic knows the way to the castle because it's a parallel universe with the same geography, and even calls the dark-looking castle a dump, even though, as Buns points out, it's a castle. Buns also contradicts herself in the same text box because first she says she was never a fan of Amy's cushy lifestyle, as if she would know about that at all, and would somehow enjoy not having a cushy lifestyle as an evil twin who you'd think would be really hedonistic. Buns proves she's still evil again by saying, "Y'all see a dump? I see the freedom to do whatever I want." Just like Scourge. Amy then lampshades, "And you didn't want a decor that wasn't falling apart?" Buns says it's symbolic, without bothering to explain why and what it could possibly be symbolic of. The falling apart of society and the laws they're rebelling against for no reason? Amy says it's depressing, especially with the dim lighting, and Sonic asks if anyone saw something we don't get to see. Then Amy naturally looks scared as a parallel version of her sings insanely about invaders without seeing her mallet coming. She's so insane she doesn't realize they can hear her and thus would be getting a warning about her mallet. Buns says that she tracked the source to the throne room, I guess because her mech can do that conveniently, and after Rosie confirms that she's a serial killer, they approach Rosie, who sadly calls Scourge by an affectionate nickname and says that he ran away. She then says that he's mean because he ignored all her attacks when she was little. Attacks, so she was a violent nutjob even when she was younger. By the way, how the hell are we expected to believe that Scourge ignored her attacks? You'd think the more ill-tempered version of Sonic would be, if anything, much less likely to. I mean, even Sonic wouldn't ignore someone's attacks. He would get mad and defend himself and call him out on it too. You really expected to believe that Scourge ignored her attacks? Really? He didn't attack her back? He didn't kill her or anything? She says that she made herself older and had a hammer with a special ring. I wonder how that special ring got to her. We know how it got to Amy, but did Scourge go through an Indiana Jones temple to get his one too? And how do you know to go there? Convenient ring detector? Why didn't he use it up with a wish the instant he got it instead of her getting a chance to use it? I mean, I can assume that the Ring of Acorns on Mobius didn't get used up because Sonic was saving it for a special occasion like a responsible hero, but Scourge would just use it right away. Why didn't he use it immediately to, like, wish away Counterpart or something? There's so many plot holes in this whole evil twin stuff that I'm losing track of myself. Sonic says that he bet the ring has some sort of side effect just because it's on anti-mobius. And Rosie explains, too insane to be unhappy about it, that the Ring of Acorns broke her mind into pieces just to be a dick. So now she breaks everything else. I mean, this isn't exactly unique to Anarchy Energy. I mean, the Chaos Energy isn't exactly a stranger to making people evil just because they get magical powers just to be a dick. Dimitri, Infinitivus. And it's annoying that nobody really points this out. Instead, they just seem to act like Anarchy Energy is just more likely to make people evil. Even though Chaos Energy has done this twice as much, as far as we know. And besides, Rosie just said that she was always violent, though, with no explanation as to why she turned out that way. So this just accentuated her violence, rather than making her violent out of complete nowhere. And the next story is the worthless half-ass Unleashed Titan story, where it just retells the prologue of the game and tells you that you'll have to play the game to find out the rest. Why couldn't they have just given that extra comic space to the main story and make it more fleshed out? What's different about this prologue rewriting is that Eggman doesn't beg Amy begging Sonic not to kill her. Wow, that would be really, really dark. I don't know how I said that by accident. But yeah, what's different about this is that Eggman doesn't beg Sonic not to kill him. Sonic just walks away, saying that he'll see him next game, walking away when he's clearly supersonic. I mean, I know he doesn't kill, but why would you do this? What a waste of a super form. You're facing the ultimate evil right now, and you idiot. Why even go super then? I mean, I guess he was destroying his robots, but Eggman promptly punishes that idiocy, saying that the power of the Chaos Emeralds is his, proving that this isn't canon because all of the emeralds are supposed to be in the special zone with Vice, and the art doesn't bother to show the laser hitting the world and splitting it apart. The story ends with Sonic questioning, why did I turn to the Werehog? And that's why Sonic Drift sucks. And the story ends with saying that you'll have to play the game to find out, which is hilariously incompetent in the self-awareness department, because if you actually watch Unleashed cutscenes, you'll know that they never explain it. Seeing this lazy excuse for an adaptation that doesn't even explain why I turned it to the Werehog makes me actually look forward to the reboot actually bothering to adapt the games properly. Was that Unleashed was dragged out for an extremely obnoxiously long time, more than any game adaptation in a comic has any right to. And they completely forgot about making the comic original and just had it be like robbing everything material-wise from the games. So you can't win. Either it's too much like the games, or it just has game adaptations that suck ass. Nothing to say about this story. It's just an unoriginal waste of comic space that could have been dedicated better to the main story, and we could have had more panels where we needed it. This issue as a whole was written by Ian Flynn, and the main story was about telling us what happened to Buns. Wait a minute! They didn't even bother to explain why she got NIDS. So, it looks like I just have to assume that she got it from being thrown in the river with a high level of thermonium, which makes no sense since Alicia was thrown in there too and didn't get the same sickness. Was Buns in the water for way longer? Anyways, after that, with it being implied that Buns is still evil and just as grateful for Kinderbore's help, which does make sense since why would she magically become good just from that? Sonic and Amy meet Rosie the Rascal, and meanwhile, Miles very clumsily negotiates a truce with the Freedom Fighters. I say very clumsily because he enrages Tails and is rude to them the minute they show up, naturally apprehensive at seeing him. Although in the latter case he probably thought they deserved it for threatening him like that, treating him like the bad guy, not to mention Antron pointing his sword at him like he intends to use it. But still, this is why I can't buy that Miles is some ultimate manipulative bastard who's a political chessmaster god, because if he was, he would have had the basic social skills to be polite to people he's desperately trying to get to trust them. It's a very delicate, fragile situation where for all he knows, he could be chased away or beaten up at any moment. And he's being snarky with them. That's not helping. He's supposed to be a genius? This has to be the first time he's ever done something like this, trying to negotiate with enemies that could actually be negotiated with. So then why isn't he more nervous? Maybe he is. We can see traces of him hiding fear right here. This is what he looks like when he's scared. He still kind of looks serious. Maybe him being a jerk is how he deals with that anxiety and stress by acting out. But again, it's not smart of him at all. We don't even get to see Tails pointing that out. It's proof that he's the smarter one. Why did Miles even say he wasn't smart anyways? Probably because Tails is naive and idealistic and carefree, and thus acts younger, making him seem immature and the stupid to Miles, I guess. But no one ever bothers to explain this, not even Miles' thoughts. So many missed opportunities with this. All in favor of just writing the evil twins as bland as possible. We also don't see how he reacts to Nicole, when you'd think that she would really startle him in this panel. And I can only assume he has a very good reason to be so naturally unintimidated by a Scourge that he's not the least bit scared about doing this against them.